but we could do a recap,
Yeah.
right?
So, but I think we
Yeah.
should still talk about,
So,
some of the clients and things that happen at Purchase as well. Because, Carol ended up really
oh yeah,
running
for
that. You
sure.
started at the end, you were running that before you went off to start your own place. You were doing that for a couple of years and being
Right.
there. And we had all, again, the nice thing about Purchase is that you had students, you could have faculty, and you could have outside people. Like we had, Nina Lowry. Wait, what's her last name? She was
Oh,
the congresswoman.
Nita.
Nita
I can't remember her last name.
Lowry or something like that. She was
Yeah.
a congresswoman. David Friedman, who was, ended up running the USPA with Brett and that. He had been a client and he was a lawyer there in Westchester. So he came, we had a lot of different people coming besides the students. And matter of fact, that's what, paid Carol's salary was more the outside people than it was the students.
Right, right. Yeah, I was saying earlier that it was kind of like, it would remind me a lot of working at Drago. So it was kind of like a teaching hospital where you had this, that we're learning, the public coming in, and you could do the faculty. It was a cool place to work.
And, great
Sounds
students.
like it, for sure.
Yeah, great students.
Yeah. So we were talking to Carol about, how she got started, and she talked about her time that she had taken classes with Weetai and Romana at NYU. And then she you had a car accident, Carol, right before you started those classes.
Right, right.
And you had a back injury.
Yes.
Yeah. So then you went to see Romana after the class, and then you started taking lessons with her at Dragos.
Correct.
And that's when you decided that you wanted to start teaching, and she had you do your hours with her. So you were teaching her clients and taking lessons.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And then
what you had said later, yes.
I was going to say, then Romana went on vacation and said, okay, take care of my clients. And if they're happy, when I come back, you'll be certified. I love that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
typically on a fashion. It was,
I know.
Oh my word. Okay, we're doing this. Yeah. But like I said,
that's so great.
Working with her clients.
That's really cool.
They taught me almost as much as she did. I mean, they were just fabulous.
And, some of her clients have been coming
imagine.
for, 10 or 20 years, long time. So they, who was the older woman that she would always send the new apprentices to and to see if they were any good? And she never went past like basic. Forget her name.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I got to really dust the cobwebs there. I know who you're talking about and I can see her face.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Right. But Romana would do that. She would like, okay. And then, she'd listen to her students, and their students would be like, that one's good. That one's not so good. That one needs a lot of work, and she would listen because they had been coming for so long. They knew, they could tell if somebody was, how did they talk? How did they interact? Did they know the exercises? Did they know the sequencing? Did they know how to put it together? And the clients would go back and, and report. So, I mean, I think that's also, a valuable process as well.
It was huge. It was really a game changer for everything. I mean, just like I said, the time spent with her at that studio with her one-on-one for all those many years and hours. I mean, that's why I can do what I can do.
And Kathy Strack is saying, thank Carol for your contribution to Romana's biography.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. Pleasure. My pleasure. I'm always happy.
Yeah. And Catherine Kirsch commented, and she said hi, because I think, did Catherine teach with you at Purchase?
Purchase, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. That's cool. So now, Sean, did you and Carol, so Carol taught at Purchase after the manual was written, and then you two continued working on the different projects throughout that time?
Well, in the beginning, she worked at both in New York and at Purchase, and that's when she started writing, but with fairly quickly, that was one of the duties that I asked her to do is, as an employee to help us, make that manual, and she was willing to do that, and that's, Romana said, she should do it, and she said okay, and I said okay, and we put it together, and she started working, and she would write it up, and then she would check it with Romana, make sure Romana, I know that must have been an interesting process. trying to get approval.
Yep,
Yes.
great. She was great with me. I mean, we had friendship, and even if something had to be adjusted, we talked about it, and she took me through the movement. I would say, oh yeah, now I understand what I could say better there, or even that was invaluable, just to have that time with her. I go to her apartment and we discuss it.
Yeah.
Always champagne involved at the end, because that's what she liked to do.
Yes. Well, she couldn't do that with me, so she would do it with you.
Yeah.
With me, she would make me dinner, and then she'd have a little glass of wine. She wouldn't do champagne.
Yeah. That was another fun thing about working with Dragos.
What did you have, Sean? Water with ice?
Yes.
And the champagne, opened, and she and Drago would pass it around to anybody who was there.
Yep.
It was a very fun.
I guess the more recap was, talking about, the process that Carol went through to write out the exercises the way Romana wanted, that Romana felt like it was, important. And, we didn't just sit back and, take our time. It was like, let's get it done. And she was very concise and worked really hard. And it was really great working with Romana. And we got it done, I think, in what, like 4 months, or was it 5?
Probably, I'd say, I think it was 5 months we had that all done.
Right. Because we I bought the trademark, I have to remember exactly when I bought it, but it was, it wasn't at the beginning of the year, it was, like spring, summer. And then right away we started, and by 93, the manual was done and ready to go. So, she worked on it through most of 92, and then in 93 it was ready, that's when we first put it out. And when we first did it, we did it, it wasn't system as much as it was apparatus. So we did, when we did the trainings in the beginning, we would do the mat, and then the reformer and the different apparatus, and then Romana would come and, put it all together at the end. But then when we got to Bob and started to do that, that's when we started to switch to making it more of a systems based, because she realized that that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think it is
okay.
I would be her body on the first day of the seminar, whatever day that was. And she would take me through all the exercises that we would learn through the whole course. And then the next day or the rest of the time, I would teach every exercise and break it down for everybody. And then Romana would come back at the end and put it all together for everybody.
Right.
So, it was cool. It worked.
Yeah. And I was there filming and watching, and when she'd get to some of them, she'd like, all right, you come over here and let me, you need to show this, like, the pull-ups on the Cadillac and things like that. I got to do the more advanced stuff, because Carol's back, she, some of the things that if she wasn't able to demonstrate because of her back or wasn't clear, or maybe Romana just wanted to throw me in there.
I think so. And I think it was just a lot for me to do all that by myself all the time. It was just a lot.
Right.
I bet.
Well, Elaine just went through the process of becoming a teacher. So she knows now. She's been doing, she got to spend the weekends teaching everybody every day for 3 days, all that time, and going through all the exercises. It's a process. It's not easy, but, you can thank, Carol, Romana, we put that together so that's the process. And it's, and Bob, and eventually we'll get to Bob, Bob as well. I mean, everybody had a participation, and not even that. When we did, we talk about taking around the U.S., we would meet every year, all the teachers of teachers, and everybody would come and the studio owners come together and, try to see what worked, what didn't. We'll go, we'll talk about that later on too.
Well, I think it was in the first video that we just lost, but Carol was saying that she added up her hours, and it turns out there was like 3,000 hours that she had ended up doing before she became over 3,000. Yeah.
Right.
And what I had said to Sean, last week was, because for your training, Sean, you have, after you become certified, that you have 5 years, and then you can begin training to be a teacher of teachers. And what I was saying to you was that, I was just doing that training weekend. Last weekend was the last weekend of it, but I can't imagine doing it with less experience. Like, it's just so much that
Right.
of information and so much to learn and so much teaching experience and different clients, like what Carol was saying, like all the invaluable lessons you learn from the clients themselves, you know, as well as your teachers. It's just, I mean, it's such a complex process that can't be rushed, I don't think.
Well,
No,
and it wasn't, and that Romana didn't do it because, it's one thing to train to be a teacher. It's another thing to train teachers how to teach, and that's a whole different, bag of candy, basically. Romana loved to give them the little candy
Yeah.
pieces. But, and so when you get certified, and then you have to teach for 5 years, that's thousands of hours, and then you have to observe, and then you have to do one under observation. So, that process is a long time, and that's what it takes to really be a good teacher of teachers, I think. And that's what Romana thought. I mean, that
Yeah.
process was not, that was, again, something that, came up with Romana and I in building the program, what worked and what didn't, and other people inputted in that, like I said, the teachers and the trainers, so that, it didn't start out with all that, but over time, that's what it always got more. It never got less. You
right.
always had to do more. You never got to like, oh, that's enough. That's too much. Let's go
Mm.
back to, let's go back to 50 hours for prerequisites. No, it was like, okay, now can we go to 100? Ramona, so it was back and forth.
Yeah.
Some people want more, very few ever wanted less, and we had to make it work so it was workable for for everybody. And now it's much more difficult because people can go online and get a certificate in a weekend, and go in the gym and work and get a job, and so it's a lot more difficult. But at the same time, if you really want to know Joe's work, and this is how you start it. And we know that Romana did change some things, but it was mostly for safety issues. Most of what I saw, or like when she taught at Purchase, the class was an hour and 15 minutes, I think, at Purchase for the dance class. And, you can't teach mat in an hour and 15 minutes. You're done in a half hour, maybe 40 at the most. And so she added exercises for the mat. The wall unit was developed at Purchase. That wasn't Joe. That was to be able to have the students come in and be able to do the mat and the wall unit, the Cadillac exercises, the push through bar, the leg springs, arm string, all that stuff, so that you can make a class that would last for an hour and 15 minutes. So, that's, things that what, people don't realize. But she, when you look at her and compared to all the other elders, because she had the archives, and, and she also ran the studio with Clara, and after that for 20 years, she had the knowledge to be able to, know what was, if there was danger, she knew what to do. And a lot of it was, in the teaching, it's also how to teach the teacher to do it safely for the client, but also for the teacher. And that's, what most people don't really get,
Mm-hmm.
because that equipment can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Carol, when you were describing the process of your training, and all the projects that you worked on, I was thinking about how you had like a level of patience, I think, that is not common today in a lot of people who are apprenticing. Like a lot of times people want to finish sooner, or they actually don't finish and they just start teaching, or they go off and open their own studio and they didn't even complete a program, so I think that, and it's great, that you set that standard for everybody to continue, and throughout the program as it continues to be taught, through Sean and through the other training programs that have stemmed from that, who that have the 600 hours that you have to complete. So thank you.
Aw, thank you. Like something super, super conscious in my brain at the time. I was just going through and just spending as much time as I could with Romana, learning everything that I could, because she, as you know, is just such a dynamo. And, I learned as much about life from her as Pilates, just, how to live life. And I can't
Mm-hmm.
describe everything that she gave to me, and what she did for me. And And even Sean, you know,
Yeah.
Sean in the beginning was really amazing experience as well, because all of his knowledge from physical therapy and all brought a whole other side into the equation. And so it was great working with him and working at Performing Arts Physical Therapy to see the Broadway dancers come in and you know, the ballet dancers and musicians. Really just all fascinating. It was really just such a great mixture of things for me to, you know, just to, for my growth and development as a teacher.
That's great.
Yeah, it sounds like it for
Thank you
sure.
for that. Well, you know,
Yeah,
it's
really
I
great.
tried to bring
Yeah.
both of those things and try to find a way to make it a professional program. And that's what, you know, that was the goal. And coming from other professions. And then at the same time, it's like Joe. I mean, Joe, when you look at everybody thinks, you know, it was the dancers program. And there was dancers at Joe's, but you know, more than half the people were not dancers or performers at all. You know, so it was that mixture. And so when you went to Drago's, you got, you know, all variations, and you get some, you know, performers as well. But when you came to my studio, well, you know, I didn't just see performers. That was the majority. But so you got a little of everything. And the way I had it set up is that you would come, you know, and it was, there was legal reasons for this, you know, that the Pilates instructor couldn't just do whatever they wanted to do. So when, you know, the therapist would set up the program and supervise the program, and we'd say, this is the exercises you can do. We would meet with the Pilates instructors every week. The instructor would say, this is where they're at, you know, this is what I'm seeing. And then you know, then would be like, okay, well now you know what, we can progress them. You can add these exercises. Let's try these. You know, it was a process. And when they got to the point where they could do a good, like, basic to intermediate, you know, they were like, okay, your PT's done. Because if you can do that, then you don't really need PT anymore, and insurance is
Hmm.
done. And you know, if you want to continue, then you can. But that's how it worked out. So these, you know, the Pilates instructors had an opportunity not just to work with, you know, regular people, but also people that had, you know, specific injuries, some coming back from surgeries and things like that, under the supervision of, you know, mostly me, but some of the other therapists. We'd meet and talk and discuss those things. So it was a really great experience to sort of meld those two things together.
Yes. And I think that
Hmm.
when we were working with the physical therapy patients, were like 30 minutes instead of an hour. That's
Right.
yeah.
Right. So, you know, but, and
Oh,
it, you
that's
know,
cool.
and when Romana would talk, she's like, it's not about an hour. It's about what they need. And for, you know,
Mm.
because what, you know, insurance was paying for it, we're doing that. You know, you gave them the, you know, the best that they could get, you know, for that process. And they were fine with that, and it was great. And it's, you know, I mean, a half hour of Pilates, if it's really focused on, and you're doing it. And again, a lot of times it wasn't like, oh, I have an ankle, so let me give you, you know, 50 ankle exercises. It's, let me give you what you can do in Pilates, modify and adjust if you need to, and start to build back that, you know, because, you know, you sprain your ankle. Well, I can have Carol or whoever the teacher was do most of the mat, right? 30 minutes. I can do most of them, teach them most of the mat. And
Hmm.
how often do you use your ankle on the mat? Because it's open chain, very little. So they can still build the strength and be able to do things as they're coming back. And then, you know, eventually start adding in the other parts. And, you know, it's a great combination. And that's, you know, you know,
Yeah.
Carol was there in the beginning, and that was that process, you know, and it's, you know, I was trying to figure out how to make that all work. And that, you know, that's what we did. We made it work that way.
Yeah. It was great.
Cool. It sounds like it. Catherine's saying, I too learned and developed so very much working with the clients at Sean's Performing Arts Physical Therapy in NYC.
Well, you know, that, you know, if you were a Pilates instructor, you know, you not all of them were able to do it, but, you know, you built up, you know, and as you got more experience, you know, and you were, you know, became a better teacher, then I could, you know, trust that you could work with the clients and be safe and do those types of things. And, you know, Romana was the same way. She made sure you were safe, you know, and safety's, you know, a real issue.
Hmm.
And, you know, and even in the training that we do now, I mean, if, you know, you can miss some questions, but if you do something that's safety, that's wrong, you fail. I mean, that's it. You know, you don't get
Yeah.
to pass if you're unsafe, because that's so important.
Romana used to always say, never ever teach
Hmm.
anything that you have not done yourself. Because how do you know how to teach it and what all the cues safety precautions are unless you know that for yourself in your own body. She was very big on that.
Yep.
Totally. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. So now, Carol, you now have your own studio.
Yes, I've had my own studio, Equipoise Pilates and Wellness, for about, I think, my business partner, Vandy Letman. We're located in Westchester and Solmers. So we've been together for quite a while. It's been a great ride for us.
And you have a great studio. We went and did a
Cool.
workshop there. It's really, she has a beautiful studio and all grots. It's really great. So
That we did. We're gonna have to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. Did you say 25 years? Is that what you said?
I think it's 23 years that we've been together.
Oh, okay. Cool.
yeah. So
That's
you,
really
I
great.
mean, Carol
Awesome.
came. She worked for me, and then worked at Purchase, and then it was, she's like, all right, I don't want to have to commute. I don't want to do this. I think, and I think you had others, but she wanted to do her own thing, and I was okay.
And I had my own, I was having babies at the time, so I wanted to be around for my kiddos and, not be commuting here and there and kind of set my own schedule. And so that's how I kind of evolved into my own studio.
Yeah, it was one of those, as an employer, I
Yeah.
don't know how many times I had, when somebody says, "Can we have a talk?" I know what's coming. I'm going to leave because, why else do they need to talk? Because they're all, we're just working, we're doing stuff, and it's like, "Can we talk?" And it's like, okay, I know what's coming next.
No
But
more
it's okay,
4 a.m. commutes.
right.
No, I don't know how I did that at the
Yeah.
time. I
But,
back on the,
Carol,
I don't
Carol was great. She, I mean, her
Yeah.
consistency, her teaching, her skills, working with Romana, with me, with Chris to put that manual together, and then teaching up at SUNY Purchase, and it was she was I mean, when you're talking about great employees, she was a great employee, and
know.
she worked the
Yeah,
way that
sounds like it.
every employer wanted to, and I hope that I provided enough for you to feel comfortable. I think I did. I tried to.
Absolutely. That it was a great experience working for you, just your knowledge. And I've always said to anybody who ever asks that I always feel like you are always trying to do the right thing where Pilates is concerned for everybody.
I always have tried to do the right thing for everybody. It's not just me. If it was just about me, it'd be different.
I've always said that, and I really believe that. And I think we all wish that that court case didn't go the way that it went, because I think we would, it would be nice if we were a little bit more unified and we could all work together, which is something that is missing, I think. And I think you could have really done that. And it's just, it's hard to look back on that still. I mean, that's decision really affects everybody today who's a Pilates instructor.
Right.
Like
Well, the people who won said that they saved Pilates, and that's not really what they did,
no,
because they didn't save it the way Joe wanted it, or the way Romana wanted it, and business wise, it's anything goes Pilates, and his name's everywhere, but his work isn't, and
right,
that's not what he wanted, and what I was setting up was to make sure if you were going to, call it Pilates, it had to be what Joe Pilates taught. And there could have been Pilates based and all that other stuff like there is. Contemporary is Pilates based, it would have just been called Pilates based instead of Pilates, but there would have been a differentiation, and it would have been clear. There is no clarity anymore. And
right.
there is this, back and forth. But, we're trying to bring people back together. I mean, when we do the pillow and other things, it's not just for classical people. It's anybody can come. I mean, you have to apply, and it's limited to 40 people because that's the housing. And we try to bring a nice group of people together with the applications. We really try to figure out who's going to work with everybody the best. And we're doing those things. And even with the archives, I'm trying to bring that stuff back. I did it for a while, and then I after the court case, and then Romana left. I sort of gave it to somebody else to run, and now I'm back. So now I'm trying to do the same thing again and bring it back. I left for a while, but I'm back again.
Good. Well, we're glad you're back.
Well, and
Yes.
and it's people like you that, from the beginning, help bring this to, what it was doing. We tried to do a lot of stuff, and we were doing the right thing.
Yes, I
But the
agree.
court case was,
Mhm.
it is what it is,
Right.
But what gets me is that, people still want to bring that up, and it's like, that was 20 years ago. I moved on. Like, move on. Let's go. Let's do the new things.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series is partly because of that. There's a certain narrative that is sort of pushed these days that's like almost glorifying the court case and saying that it was, good and, you know, uh, winners and losers. And it's just like this whole like conversation or narrative that's being pushed right now that I wanted to put the focus on the positive things that you've done, Sean, for the last 30 years and the people who have worked with you to make these amazing accomplishments. I mean, if you really think about, Carol's task at writing out the instructions for the exercises and then demonstrating them in the photos and taking on the first, comprehensive teacher training and all that she did during that time. I mean, that's like a really big deal of that influenced everybody, like I said earlier. So I'm glad that we can turn our focus onto these things, these accomplishments that you both and have achieved for all of us, that we can,
Right.
keep the positive in the
Because
situation.
I agree, because before that, what was there? There was no, book or whatever, and the manual was imitated by almost every program that came afterwards. Especially if they say they're
Very
contemporary,
influential.
if they say they're classical, that and some of them even use my manual illegally, but that we won't go there. But at the same time, they used it to do their training, and then they made their own eventually. But that's and what did they do when they make it? They made it related to what we did, what Carol did, what Romana did, what I did. The times, the breakdown, all the stuff that happened. If you have prerequisites, you have 2, 4, 600-hour tests, all those things. And if what's the purpose of the exercise and how do you do it? That's what it's all about. And that came from the work that Carol did and
Yeah.
Romana. And that was really bringing that all together that hadn't been done before. And that's amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, very amazing. So
and I actually
thank
think
you.
to thank you, Elaine, for just being so diligent and amazing with trying to get people together and organize, history and the archival pictures that you put up and you explain and about the history, and it's great. I mean, you've been amazing at really presenting some of this work. So you're a big part of what's going on too. So thank you.
Well, we're still
Thank
making
you.
Pilates history.
Thank you.
We're still making it.
Yes. Well, that was the other part of it too, because I think like a lot of times I'll hear things like almost as if history stopped. I'm like, history's still being made every day.
Right.
It's like the story's not over. So yeah. So we'll see what happens. Lots of things to come, which is fun. Yeah.
Well, Carol, thank you
Cool. So
very
I
much
think we
for
should
joining us.
end because I'm concerned. Yeah, I don't even want anything to happen to the video.
Right.
So I want to make sure I can end it correctly. Yeah.
All right. So, Carol,
But
thanks again, and
thank you. Yeah, thank you
appreciate
so much.
everything.
So
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed
so
it.
yeah, Carol's studio is called Equipoise Pilates, and you're on Instagram, right, Carol?
Yes, Equipoise is, and then C. Baker
Yeah.
Pilates as well.
Okay. Yep. Equipoise Pilates and C. Baker Pilates. If you want to find Carol on Instagram, and her studio is in, what did you say, Westchester and Somers?
In Somers, yes.
So, if you want to take
But
a
yeah,
session
okay.
with
And that's in
somebody
New
who
York State.
spent thousands and thousands of hours training with Romana and get that insight, she's the person to go. She's one of the people to go to. There's
Yeah.
others that did some. Roxanne had a lot of time with Romana too, right? So there's You know, there's other people, but you know, there's people who are still with Romana's Pilates, some that are. I mean, you know, it's available for everybody. You know, you can go out there, and I encourage everybody to take lessons with teachers, and you know, the more credibility they have, the better, because that, you know, that if you're looking for source materials, so go for it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Definitely. Yeah. Great.
So
So tomorrow, we have Kathy Strack is going to be talking with you, Sean, about taking the teacher training program nationally across the U.S. That'll be
mhm.
Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay. Well, thanks,
Okay.
Elaine. Thanks, Carol. You know,
Thank you.
I'm really
Thanks, Carol.
appreciate this so that we can really get the history and what really happened, because you know, there's people, you know, there's lots of stories and people say this and this different things, and this really clarifies what really happened, and what the history is, and you know, make sure it's clear for everybody. So it's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
All right.
both.
Bye.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining. Okay. All right. Bye.